prevalence is quite high in comparison to other states.
Domestic violence happen or take place because of gender disparities, like I said. It says when a gender inequality exists in a society, then comes violences against women. And violences against women is also part of cultural norms. In a lot of ways, in a lot of culture, whether it's a Sikkim or any other state of the Northeast, is that, okay, you have to prove that you're a man. Hitting your wife is, I say, another, proof factor. So in that context, violence has emerged to be, in a highest, but many cases are not being reported. They go unreported. Because today, we still, like, our culture doesn't, allow us to come out where it says, okay, it's a matter of the house. Why should you go out of the house? You deal it within the house. It is that kind of consistent, what we call it, pressure, that a lot of women don't come forward unless until there are support system available outside where they know that they're going to be assured in terms of the help and support,
Okay, shifting the topic to HIV/AIDS, since your NGO network also works on HIV/AIDS. In my opinion, don't you think HIV/AIDS has been kind of something fashion funda? Don't you think we have to be really rational about HIV/AIDS? Because once a year on December 1st we come out, we say stop AIDS, keep the promise, and rest of the 364 days we are no way. What do you feel on this?
Now, HIV and AIDS is no longer, a disease issue. It's a developmental issue, because it takes away. It's basically how the community looks at people, being affected by HIV and AIDS. Very often, it's not the disease, because today with ARV drugs, and you can still prolong your life for many years even if you have good, substitute therapies, and you have, good diet and a good health. But what really affect people, who are affected with HIV and AIDS is the stigma and discrimination of the community. So it's more of a social development issue. It's a development issue because it takes away the precious years of people, and people go, behind. They don't want to report about the status, or when somebody report, is always about whether the person is, if it's a woman having HIV and AIDS, whether she comes from a loose character or she's been, been into prostitution and so on. It's never looked at from the larger context. Coming back to the 1st of December being observed as World AIDS Day internationally every year, it's a kind of a reminding when we say stop AIDS, keeps a promise. It's about reminding ourselves, reminding as governments, as, as stakeholders, that we have a long way to go. We have the commitment that is being kept needs to also be taken further. But intervention can only take place when there is a multi-sectoral approach, when there is a kind of a convergence of different departments together, that HIV/AIDS is no longer a health issue. It also has to be integrated into the social welfare, the labor, all this, it has to be integrated. Then the level of awareness will come further. And if you're looking beyond that, we also have to see that HIV and AIDS cannot just be a component of just creating awareness. There has to be the issue of rights, the issue of a support system, the issue of addressing community at large, and the question of stigma and discrimination. So it has to be a multi-sectoral approach. It cannot just be one direct way of intervening. But again, human trafficking and HIV and AIDS are so correlated, because very often when young children or young women are being trafficked, they are also at high risk of getting HIV and AIDS. So it has got very much interlinked. That's one of the major reasons that we work on the issue.
Asha, I just would like to ask you something very up close and personal. You are young, talented and dynamic, and you have been proactively working since many years, and you have been keeping yourself very busy day in and day out. Where does the tremendous energy comes from?
I think when you have a vision, and the vision is so strongly, imbibed by your principle, the energy, comes from within, And I believe so much that when you know that you want to bring a change process, and I think as a social entrepreneur, I looked at change process from, from the perspective of the goal and the vision that I envisioned, and carry forward. Challenges and others makes you, understand that yes, there's a long way to go. The enthusiasm for me, it's the belief that things are possible to change. The enthusiasm comes when, a child is being rescued, and when that child gets back alive. Like, for example, this year we had one of our rescued girls getting married. it gives that immense pleasure and enthusiasm that yes, if you can give back one more life to relive life again, it's something that you can carry on taking further. And I guess I'm also a very, in nature, I'm a very Osho, I'm a very strong Osho believer, where I say, it's all about the mind and how the mind looks at things and how you perceive things very positively. So positive energy is always of the way how you look at things and how you do things, So I think that brings me a lot of enthusiasm.
After carrying the rescue operation, at the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow, the ultimate satisfaction, what kind of, energy or satisfaction you get?
There's a lot of personal satisfaction that brings about that I could be a part of a process. I could be a person who could save one person's life. So each person's life that is being saved all the time brings back that understanding that how life is so precious. That is something that I go back to sleep and say, I've done something very constructive and useful. I'm not just, doing a job, but I'm also doing something which is beyond a job,
Hasina, undoubtedly you have been very instrumental in rescuing many child labor and human women and all the people. Is there some very special case on your mind which is very close to your heart, or you will be never forgetting throughout your life?
Yeah, yes, one of the major case is a girl called Ella. Of course, I can mention her name now openly because she has come forward to talk openly to the media out of her own free will. She has also been closely associated with Impulse NGO Network in responding to the issue, where she started conducting training. She also would travel with me to different states in the Northeast, initially when the work was taking ahead. Today she's married. Her case has been a great instrument of, visioning the work that has been carried out by Impulse and how we could look at things and how our things need to be developed, what are the challenges and what are the things that needs to be done. So it is very close to my heart. And when she got married and I'm the one who did the Kanyadan for her, it's like it makes me feel so good. It is so close because it's like from the rescue where I was involved to the reintegration where me and the team was involved. Then she joined in the organization to work as a staff. She's continuing as a staff and has been instrumental to give me that understanding what needs to be done and how further you need to understand when you work with human trafficking. And also a person who went through the challenge with me, in which, one of the traffickers, Mr. Bhaktiram Pandey, who was in prison, has, in fact, we got that judgment because she was the only witness, that strength, when she go to court to identify the trafficker. And I was part of that process. It gives me that immense understanding that I can never forget. It's so close to me.
Sometimes does your profession or does your work put into your trouble, for example, getting calls or threatening calls?
Yes, in fact, I've been facing a threatening call for the past 1 year and have filed an FIR against my threatening call. And of course, today it's, I'm waiting for the judgment. In terms of a charge sheet needs to be filed, but the issue of non-filing of the charge sheet has been a major concern that the Asian Human Rights Commission has taken up as an international urgent appeal towards the law enforcement, the government of Meghalaya on my behalf, that my security is an issue. This has emerged because I'm an Ashoka Fellow and also have worked for 16 years now and 10 years on the anti-trafficking. And as a human rights defender, this threat is no longer just a threatening call over the telephone. The attacks on the car, my car on my traveling, and my physical assault that took place outside the court recently on the month of May has also been a major concern for the Asian Human Rights Commission. It's concerned that the right of a human rights defender needs to be protected.
That somehow have deter the spirit in you?
Not really deter. It gives you more that yes, the nexus of human trafficking is larger than I could ever think, and it's gone much more further. And it needs a collective approach. It needs, the work of, different stakeholders to address this issue. And there's a lot of risk involved in it. And the risk factor is also relating to the legal context, where unless until there's a legal support system or a proactiveness from the police and the judicial, it's going to be a very challenging bit, you know.
What kind of response you get